So one central theme that seems to come up a little bit when we're becoming aware of our own biases, what we know, what we don't know, acknowledging that, becoming meta on our thoughts is really self-awareness. Like going back to the word you said before, which is mindful. So if we're as a leader in that space of being mindful and being open, not having hubris, not getting focused on how great I am and how much I know, how do we create a culture where people are okay in challenging assumptions and looking at different perspectives rather than being fearful of being wrong?
Failure has to be seen as positive, not negative, right? So that's the first thing I say is you celebrate failure rather than sort of castigate those who have failed. So failure is really critical because that's where the opportunity for learning takes place. In fact, one of the suggestions I make, John, is that when planning for success, focus on failure is something I've written here. And the reason I say that is a lot of us can make a scenario of, hey, we as a team are going to make this decision. I want my boss to know I'm making this decision. This is the direction, and this is my scenario, and that's the plan, and this is where I think we're going to get. Fine. Maybe you get there, maybe you don't. But to acknowledge the uncertainty and to take the value of learning from failure before you actually fail, there's something called a pre-mortem analysis. It's speculative hindsight. So what you do, or perspective hindsight, excuse me, you put yourself in the future 5 years forward, and you look back to the present and you say, oh, John made this decision for us to go in that direction. God, that was a horrible decision. Why? Let's think about why we failed with that decision. What happened? Oh, a global recession hit, sales plunged, or you know what? 3 of our key team members left. We were so overly dependent there. There was technological disruption in the business from a different angle. Turns out government regulation changed, or there was a new trade flow pattern that resulted in a competitive threat we hadn't thought about. All of these dynamics could have made John's great decision today fail 5 years from now. So let's just do that with every decision we're thinking about. Let's imagine ourselves 5 years forward and how we failed. I think doing it that way takes the pressure off us as a team, saying with you, John, in the conversation, and I as the leader sort of saying, no, I'm trying to encourage a thought process that's more open-minded, more willing to think about failure. If we make it personal about you, that doesn't feel right. It's sort of, you're going to be less likely to step forward with ideas in the future. But if instead we say, this is just part of our process. We just always evaluate 5 years forward. This has failed. Why? That's something we do for every possible decision we're going to put on the table. And we as a team have decided a leader who sets up that framework, that context, is more likely to feel like they get better idea flow. Alternatively, one other thing I've done with group decision making, which is a different domain, and we can get into the complexities there if you want to. But when you go into the domain of groups, sometimes having a structural devil's advocate is actually really important. It's because, it's not personal, John, but my job is to tell you why your idea is horrible. It's not going to work. Here's why. It's not personal. If it's not a structural person whose job it is to always say no, well, now we got conflict. And Jesus, what the hell is Vikram always gunning for my ideas for? That Vikram guy's really a pain. I don't like him. He's always shooting down my ideas. And then you get counterproductive dynamics in the social sense of management. But a leader who sort of encourages a context where failure can be openly discussed and is not deemed personal or offensive to individuals, but is instead discussed in the sort of context of seeking better outcomes for all, well, that's a healthy development, I think.
I think so too. I think there's sometimes an overemphasis on focus on the positive that can happen, especially in the personal growth and development industry. But you're saying, looking at it realistically, let's either create a role or create it as part of the structure of our decision making so that we all encompass that role while we're making those decisions. That's a very powerful one.
John, it's also true on the personal development side too, right? I mean, so you're going to make a career move. Someone's thinking about a career move. Oh, you know what? I'm currently a manager in this department. I think I have an opportunity to become a vice president at that company in the same department doing this. Is that a good thing or bad thing? Let's do the same process. 5 years forward, horrible decision. Why? well, the company you went to went out of business and you were seen as the person that led to their failure because you were in that vertical, which had problems to begin with. There was a lawsuit, there was regulation. You can do the same thing and see how it affects you in your career.